Someday, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And then, for the second time in the history of the world, we will discover fire. Thousands of years ago, in the last ice age, the whole world was cold, covered in snow and in ice. There were several villages of human beings that managed to survive that wintry and dark world. One day, two persons from one of those villages ran to take shelter from a storm into a cave. And there in that cave, they bumped against two flint rocks. And a spark came out of those two rocks. And that spark touched wood. And there was fire. Without intending to do so, those two villagers discovered fire, warmth and light, heat and smoke. In the coldest and darkest of times on this earth, they discovered fire. They began to share this gift, this new gift of heat and light with others, and at first everybody rejoiced. There were celebrations that lasted the whole night long. And the fire began to spread. Whenever the fire went out, they would take these two flint stones and strike them one against the other. And again, there was fire. This wonderful flame came out of those magic stones. These two became heroes immediately. But not everybody was happy with this turn of events. Those who sold coats and pelts found themselves threatened. The tribal leaders were jealous of the power that these two had among the people now. And the priests were suspicious. How could there come to be this gift from God if it didn't come through them? And so these three groups of people got together and came up with an idea. What they would do is they would take these sacred stones and declare them holy and sacred. Holy so that you could not use them, and sacred so that you could not touch them. And they took these sacred stones and they put them on their sacred altar, where the people would bow to them and pray and give thanks to God for this sacred gift. But nobody touched them anymore. Soon life went back to normal, and the earth grew cold again and dark. And the people remembered the fire and its warmth, but it became less and less real to them over the years. People complained about the gods who used to act and no longer act anymore. The priest blamed the people for a lack of faith. Yet everybody had to admit these people had great devotion to these sacred rocks on this sacred altar. But where was the fire? Where was the fire, they asked. And that's exactly the question. Where is the fire? 2 weeks ago, the Church Universal gathered around fires as we did here on Holy Saturday night around that fire pit outside, and we blessed the new fire. And a flame from that fire led us into this darkened church. And here in this darkened church, the fire spread. And we sang an ancient song. Except this Easter candle, a flame divided but undimmed, a pillar of fire that glows to the honor of God. But is not our temptation the very same temptation of those ancient villagers? Aren't we tempted to take the fire and ignore it or praise it into impotence? Don't we, like they, also go to extremes to make sure we honor the fire over there, out there, somewhere else, and domesticate it and contain it instead of discovering the fire within us right here? On that first Easter Sunday morning, the flame leapt out from the tomb into every leaf, into every stone, and into every human heart. On that first Easter, the fire that was in the beginning moved into us now. It broke out everywhere in every human heart. This flaming up of humanity in so many free and bold and beautiful and powerful lives. There are people, and I'm sure you've met them, in whom the fire burns. Like the scriptures proclaim in one of the resurrection stories, did not our hearts burn inside of us as we walked with them? I know you know people like that, whose lives are so free or so bold, so brave, so beautiful, so powerful, that you know you see fire in them, and your heart burns too as you walk with them through this world. In this gospel story, Peter and the rest, they're out fishing. They're doing what they ordinarily do and perhaps even what they loved. But out of the corner of their eye, they catch a spark on the seashore. And they row towards that spark. And at first, it seems what they're drawn to is this fire, this real fire. But you can tell after a few seconds there that it wasn't the fire in wood and flame that drew them. It was the fire in a man's eyes. They saw fire in Jesus' eyes. And it was the fire of love they saw burning there. That same fire catches our eye too when we see it burning in the eyes of another. You burn with that fire. You go the extra step to worship sometimes on Sundays in a way that can help you catch fire because you know you need it and you want it. You make sacrifices to come here in this particular place because I think you want to tend the fire so much. It's a fire that beckons and calls. Our logo here at the Catholic Student Center is flame. You walk over that logo every time you come to Mass. It's our hope that this community can be a place where you, and most especially students, can discover fire and catch fire. Love is fire. Make no mistake about it, we play with fire here. And if you choose to love and believe and hope, you will get burned. You will get burned. Because fire, like love, is very dangerous. This time of year, as we move through April and towards May, a community like this starts to note its letting goes and its goodbyes, just as many of you had to do when your students went off to college. At the end of that college time, there are so many goodbyes and so many letting goes, and it doesn't get easier. But that's the nature of love, isn't it? To get burned by it sometimes along the way. Fire is painful as love is painful, and love, like fire, purges us of ego and pride and everything in between. But it's not going to happen unless we're willing to get burned here or anywhere. Really? This fire that burns in our hearts is a wildfire. It's an inferno. It's not some self-contained gas fire log, this love. And yet it's very purposeful. It's not random or reckless. It has a reason. Fire gives light, the light of meaning, but it also gives warmth, the warmth of connection. As I read about what happened at Virginia Tech this past Monday, and the words loner applied again and again and again to that young man who killed those 32 students and professor, I can't help but wonder if there's not a way that word would never have to be used again to describe anybody. And that communities like this could exist so that there are not loners left out in the cold and in the dark. A tragedy like what happened Monday at Virginia Tech was an extraordinarily violent act. And if anything could threaten this fire that is love, it would be to be a victim of violence of any sort. Not just for those who are victims, but for the rest of us too, when we begin to wonder about all this. But my friends, Easter fire will not be smothered. It might dim for a while, but it will not be extinguished. It refuses to be extinguished. As we sang 2 weeks ago, let it mingle with the lights of heaven and continue bravely burning to dispel the darkness of the night. We're not here to worship fire. We're here to discover fire burning within. And to ask ourselves this morning, who sees fire in our eyes? Do you and I still burn for anything? Can people tell that we're on fire? Do they see fire in our eyes? You know, I can't help but think when Jesus was asking Peter 3 times, do you love me? That he was trying to take Peter, which means literally the rock. That he was trying to take those flint rocks and create a spark in Peter's heart. Peter, do you love me? Do you love me? Yes. I hope you hear that every time you come here. Do you love me? The fire, in the end, has got to be discovered right here. I leave you with the quote from one of my favorite priests, poets, scientists, and philosophers. Someday, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And then, for the second time in the history of the world, we will discover fire